life and the streets where I grew up became my university and became my focus. And actually, a lot of I've processed is I was surrounded by, in my community, a lot of adults doing all the wrong things. And sometimes the most beautiful template of where to go in life is not the direction to move in, but definitely the corners never to turn. I had some great examples of what never to be. I had some great examples of what my life didn't want to end up like. But my destiny and my fate was more likely to go to prison than it was to university.
John, welcome to Career Jam. It's really great to see you on the other side of the universe.
Hello, good morning from here in Scotland. How are you?
Very good. Good evening. Very boiling down under, but looks a little bit chilly where you are.
That is correct. Yeah.
Well, let's dive straight in. So I love Edinburgh, one of my favourite places in the world. I've had the joy to actually stay there for a little bit, as you know. But Edinburgh for me is all about the Fringe Festival. You know, when people think about it, they think about Edinburgh Castle, they think of kilts, tartan, a little wee sporran, and a wee dram of whiskey. But your images and pictures of Scotland when you were growing up probably looked a little different to those. Can you paint us a picture of what your life was like growing up in your Edinburgh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm about to paint a stark social contrast to the middle-class cultured bliss that which you just proffered. However, at the outset, I don't dare want to suggest that whiskey has not been a key part of my life. So we'll just give a pass on that part. But no, absolutely, Edinburgh, capital city of Scotland, the second most visited touristic area in the UK outside of London. As you say, known for sort of ancient castles, the home of our parliament, feats of engineering with the bridges, landmarks of history with our mountains, the largest multi-arts festival on earth, all very lovely. But what happens if you're born at the wrong side of the mountain's shadow? And in many ways, I suppose that's where myself and lots of us come from. I'm from, I suppose, the parts of Edinburgh more recognised in Trainspotting, the movie, or Rebus, a book series, than perhaps what you just offered. This is not it, building sort of poverty porn story or a poor me sort of analysis. But it's just the reality. We still have a huge number of our children and families growing up in poverty. Their identities are marked by things they don't have or what they're perceived as not being able to achieve, as opposed to the beauty and talents that they do possess, the rights they do hold, or I suppose the scale of their ambitions for their own futures. And that's very tough. I remember recently I was up hosting a big youth conference in some of the wee islands on the top of Britain, in Orkney. I was hosting an event and we had this kind of council convener, provost mayor type figure opening the event, as often happens with such civic occasions, and sort of blasted out this kind of prophecy to all these young people. You're so lucky and fortunate to live in Orkney and these beautiful islands, of Neolithic history and great relics of the past with relative safety and comfort and enjoyment and bliss. And, Lonely Planet named this one of the 50 destinations in the world to grow up, and yada, yada. And then afterwards, I had a great conversations with these young people who, by the way, are the primary custodians of their own ideas and experiences, who said, actually, mental health's awful, that we feel choked out in such a small community. Everyone knows everything. There's no space to be, to explore, to fail, to self-express. And that really helped me understand my own journey a bit, to recalibrate my narrative, in that it's one thing to grow up with poverty, struggles, problems, but it's also another thing to grow up in a really nice place where the adult narrative in the rest of the world tells you how lucky you are to be there. So you feel like Edinburgh's amazing, but your own journey through it hasn't been. And you start to feel like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting it? What have I broken? What am I doing wrong? Why am I undeserving of this? So there's a recorrelation for me there. In lots of ways, my childhood was really happy. It was really simple, and that was fantastic. But in lots of other ways, looking back, it's going to be a lifetime of work for all of us, including myself, to understand the childhood experiences what fingerprints that leaves on us, and how I found my passions and inspirations through what I went through as a kid that absolutely models how I choose to live as an adult.
And you've built mission and purpose right from the get-go. Where did that motivation come from? Was it from your background? Was it an accumulation of what you could see and what you could change around you?
See, this is what I think is very interesting. I built mission and purpose, or I don't know if I did. I think mission and purpose found me. I really have to believe that. I think it's far more modest or innate than that, in the sense that when you go through rubbish, when you go through crap, when you feel like you've touched hell, you've struggled, you've had dark days, it sort of stops being an academic exercise. Real life in the streets of where I grew up became my university and became my focus. And actually, a lot of I've processed is I was surrounded by, in my community, a lot of adults doing all the wrong things. And sometimes the most beautiful template of where to go in life is not the direction to move in, but definitely the corners never to turn. I had some great examples of what never to be. I had some great examples of what my life didn't want to end up like. But my destiny and my fate was more likely to go to prison than it was to university. The prevalence of police hatred, of violence, of unemployment, and it's my very postal code, my zip code, where I grew up, not just the city, but in north of Edinburgh, in these areas of Pilton and Muirhouse, were the HIV/AIDS capital of Europe. Infection rates were high because of the connection with, it becomes sort of famously connected, of course, with the sort of gay male community in terms of HIV, but actually a lot of that wasn't that. It was dirty needle use, it was drugs, it was HIV connection to injecting. So that it was coming out of this, and I was born in that period, coming out of this era of really being defined by some pretty horrible stuff. Scotland still has a huge relationship problem with drugs. We are still, per head of population, the highest drug deaths of anywhere in Europe. So I think it's 3 or 4 times higher than just down in England. So there's some real social challenges steeped in there. And I remember having such a strong identity to be from Pilton, which is this written off, judged, kicked down, judged by all its negatives kind of area, that even when I tried to get involved in citywide projects, youth work, city centre kind of, I saw sort of middle class, nice, twee opportunities. I had to kind of decide what hat to wear. I could be the rough, struggling, depressed kid from the area, or to become that kind of socially acceptable, smiley, jolly guy that everyone really wants to see in the middle of town, want to all these nice events and sort of turn up, show up, and kind of put on the game face and just get on with it kind of person. Realising all that stuff, watching what my mother went through, watching the streets, the kids, the families around me, that presented to me, this is what I need to do. I'm sick of being judged, written off, and having other people write our narratives. And my passion, my mission, my purpose, whatever you want to call it, came from that intersectionality of poverty, disadvantage, watching actually the core systems of state, the welfare state, society, create poverty. By the way, poverty is man-made. We made it, we choose it, it's economic decisions. We have sleepwalked or intentionally driven into a society where the gap between the rich and the poor is massive, where we care about some people's experiences more than others, where young people and children have access to their agency and human rights more easily than others. And that really spawned in me a real understanding through experience, not through academic passion, of poverty. And the other intersection was generational justice, young people's rights, children's rights. I remember being told you're sort of judged as your hoodie-wearing sort of gang member, sort of like thug. So that became my passion at the heart of that. And I kind of went on to realise that's what I'm here to do. That's what I need to do. And I didn't feel like I want to give back to society. That's sort of a very luxurious philanthropic statement. To this day, it lives as a sort of red flag in my mind. I want to give back because it has a them and us baked into it, that I'm on that side and I want to help those on that side. I felt very much like I was on that side, and I want to champion the voice and choices of people that I'm standing along with. I wasn't throwing anything over. I was already there. So for me, that lived experience rising up was really empowering. I had so many dark days, Spec, growing up, that that I hid so well. Young people growing up with poverty, with trauma, with struggle, we've had a beautiful ability to swallow pain, to swallow fear, to swallow trauma and struggle, and with the expectation of society to then sort of burp out happiness and positivity and, spew out loveliness and cogency. And there's a real overworking of certain parts of the human machinery to kind of turn up each day. Sometimes society doesn't want to hear it. They actually want you just to get on with it and be fine. And, I don't know about Australia, but I think it is a bit similar here in Scotland. There's a sort of expectation. We don't want victims here. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Suck it up and get on. Chuck that into this man-up culture that we have. And it becomes a pretty toxic environment in which, particularly as a young man struggling, trying to overcome stuff, has to kind of deal with. So I will talk often about two most powerful words in the leadership lexicon. And the first one is why. Why is society like this? Why am I going through this? Why do we have a system or set of systems built against me, or it feels like that? Why am I here? And the beauty of that is the most powerful word is it makes you quest for more. It makes you challenge the status quo. It makes you not normalize the norms. And for me, I wanted to redefine the paradigms of society. I wanted to redefine the paradigms of me ending up in jail and being a teenage dad on drugs, doing whatever. I want to redefine the paradigms of the kind of future my mum, brothers and family could have. So that was really important for me. But sometimes the greatest acts of, realizing your why is you don't know you're doing it. It's just another, you look back on it as a memory. People will tell you, wow, you must be proud, you achieved something. But I'm just out there being the loud, tall, ginger guy that I was, trying to make society better. And that was really important.
And you've been on quite the journey, and it sounds like you've had a lot of opportunity to self-reflect, not only on your own journey, but through the journey of others. And people will see you and think of you how you are now and say, wow, well, that's just been a momentum building, skill gathering, passion driven. But were there times where there were the gaps and the confidence where you had to stretch, or there were elements of doubt in where you were headed, in the difference between where you are now and where you wanted to go? What was your strategy?
Things live as true together. You can have reflective confidence, and to be truly reflective, you have crap days. You feel shit. You feel not good enough. You struggle. You listen to the naysayers. You pick up on the microaggressions. You pick up on that real understanding that who am I to be here? Get back in your box, son. We know who you are. We know where you're from. We know what you're not supposed to be doing. There's that sort of societal voice that creeps around you. People call it the chimp on your shoulder. People call it the naysayer, the doubt. Yeah, people call it the inner saboteur trying to catch you out. And that's really important to understand how to deal with this. And I've found there's a trick to this as a leadership message, as a message, as humans. We think that confidence is the absence of doubt, fear, or sort of second guessing. It's absolute nonsense. In my experience, confidence and confident people are riddled with doubt, or riddled with reflection, or riddled with second guessing, or riddled with failure, or riddled with fear. But you do it anyway. So like that message of do it anyway is really critical. Now there's a big bit of me that if you ask me not to do something, it's the quickest way to get me to do it. If I'm not supposed to be there, I'm going to get the RSVP in and turn right up. If I'm not supposed to reach that height, I'm going to jump that bit higher. I want to prove you wrong, call you out, stick two fingers up at societal expectations and say, I told you so. That's just in me because of where I was from, because of the lack of expectations, structure and guidance. So I've understood that's part of my codification. But even to this day, I struggle. It's horrible. It's hard. You second guess. You feel you're not good enough. One byproduct of aspiration and ambition is a quest for tomorrow being bigger than today. Therefore, you have a bias against appreciating the now because you're chasing the next thing. By the way, that's a real limiter, because you need to pause and reflect, be proud of what you've done, trust that you're where you're supposed to be, and just remember that you're more than the collective sum of the bad things that have happened to you. That's extremely important. As the leaders, we don't give ourselves that break sometimes. So that self-awareness, self-wisdom, self-protection is about pausing, recognizing you're where you're meant to be, being proud of whatever you've got through. You won't jump as high as, in your own mind as everyone else, because you're always going to measure yourself against the bigger, shinier next thing. But it's really important to recognize the point you're on now is solid and you deserve to be there. And then we can get back to the business of hopping over the quicksand of future aspirations that may take you up, it may take you down, but as long as you get through. So I think my confidence is really strong, but I second guess myself all the time. I think I'm not good enough all the time. It's just about adjusting the volume of how much you listen to that. Because confidence can be silent and insecurity can be very, very loud. You need to adjust the audio settings. And I think, have all the doubt, give yourself that. I kind of put it in a box for me, I give it my voice. I'll let it live with me, by the way. It coexists with me all the time. But I say, okay, I've heard you now. My why is bigger, is louder, stronger. Off I go. Call that resilience, call that purpose-driven change, call that audacity, whatever you want. But I think that's really important. And society doesn't always recognize it. And here's a key point. People will relate to this. All my life, I've been told I'm too big, I'm too much, I'm too loud, I'm extra. I don't know when to shut up. I don't know when to rein it in. And that's a really kind of key part of me saying, thank you. You better believe it. And it took me a while to recognize and honours. To this day, any speech I give, and I didn't do it this morning, but I always say, hello, my name is John. I'm told to overthink. I'm told to crave attention, and I don't know when to rein my neck back in. I make adults feel uncomfortable because I speak an inconvenient truth, but don't expect an apology from me today, because what I do is to help a generation of let down youth. In life, the old saying goes that our parents want us to have better than they got, but for too many kids, that's a promise the world's forgot. Struggling people break. We probably watch ourselves even crack, but it's not until we love ourselves that we put our own lives back on track. And that's if you do NLP, you'll know positive anchoring. That's a part of my anchor to say, however stormy my day is, that's my anchor inside. And it comes into, and I'll finish on this point in this question, consolidated inner truth and trust in yourself. Confidence for me ultimately is, I don't know what this next part of my journey holds, but because the vehicle is me, I trust that when I get there, he will take the right turn. And I don't have a finalized destination, and this is something about goal setting, but I trust that I will move in the right direction. I'm getting closer, or I'm going a bit higher, or I'm actualizing a wee bit more along my journey, because the journey matters. And I trust that this big ginger ball of sparkly loudness will get me towards that and who I am. So that's really important. I think that sometimes I find people prune and preen their life and their propositions so beautifully that it's not actually confidence, it's deep insecurity, because you need the armor perfectly polished at every moment, because when you take that off, there's just a scared little kid under there that is really fragile. And I'm happy to let the edges go a bit rusty. I'm happy to kind of fly off by the seat of my pants a bit, to tell the awkward joke, to be a bit chilled, to be a bit atypical, because I don't really have that much to prove in terms of my proposition now of who I am. And for me, that's my form of self-actualization in that respect, that I can just breathe a bit and I can trust my process to take me there. So confidence can be a bit rusty and a bit edgy and have doubt underneath it. Do it anyway.
That's gold, John. And what advice would you give to the people who are just stuck? They've come to a point, they've fallen in a hole. You've had a journey from Scottish Youth Parliament, chairing that in the very early sort of days of the 2000s, and you've moved through to founding Dare to Lead. You've worked with leaders across the globe. What is the sense of what moves people from that place and time, given all the exposure you've had to clients?
Yeah, great question. Lots of stuff in there. And I think I won't frame this as advice, but what I'll say is what I think worked for me and what I think I see worked for other people. I spoke about the two most powerful words in the leadership language, and I spoke about why. Find your why. What's your purpose? What's your drive? Coalesce around something that is greater than you, that is bigger than the I, that is more than the me, but becomes about the why, becomes about the we. And a time more than ever when we really risk, one prism of the view is we have a generation of self-focused, entitled individuals who want to just go out there and literally broadcast. Speak, 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 love me, love me, love me, poor me, poor me, poor me, victim, 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 love me, all this. But actually, we're so busy seeking to be heard that we're not listening. We're so busy to be understood that we're not attempting to understand. We're so busy to broadcast that we're not willing to ingest and respond. So this is really, I think, there's an ecosystem around realizing that, you've got to find your why and your purpose, yes. But then find your why, and as we'd say in Scotland, then say aye. Then say yes. Say yes to things. It's not enough to know that you care in your mind about something. I want to tackle the drugs epidemic. I want to be at the forefront of integrating AI into social responsible education modelling. I want to be at the heart of tackling mental health across Australia. I want to be at the heart of, I don't know, whatever that is, gender equality in WA, or whatever your issue is that you're sitting deeply caring about right now. It's not enough to have a why. You then need to say yes, which means taking action, do something about it. I was working with a group of senior leaders across England, secondary school teachers, head teachers, and they'd all sit and go, oh yeah, we care deeply about the kids, we care deeply about education, care deeply about looking after those group of growing human beings that we have in that building. And then when I interviewed the kids and surveyed them, they all come back and say they feel like the adults don't care about them. So it's not enough just to have a care or a maxim or a purpose. You then need to demonstrate, prove it, show it, do it. And I find so often when I go and do these big leadership conferences, I host my Dare to Lead summits, events, training programs, give keynotes. People come up to me, two things happen. They'll say, you've got such a powerful story, it's really impressive. And I wish if I had such a sad background or challenging story, I hope I'd do something too. And I kind of feel like one, and this, bless her, I'm sure she means well, but there's one lovely, probably quite privileged young girl who said, hey, I wish I was poor enough to be inspirational. And that's just ridiculous. Genuinely, it completely misunderstands the proposition that I was trying to make. We all have problems. We all have struggles. We all have a journey. We all have a contribution to make. Some people just turn that volume up quicker than others. Some people create solutions for the we. Some people focus on the me or the I. And I don't judge them for that, because we're in a society where you're told you have to be better than the person next to you. It's dog eat dog, an eye for an eye. Well, my view is, don't just be better than the person next to you. Make the person next to you better. Look the model, redefine, validate your why, have your purpose, then say I, say yes, and go and do something about it. And the thing is, don't try and get perfect, because you'll fail all the time. Your yes can be a small step. It could be supporting someone else, the power of followership. Get behind someone you really like initially. One big bit of advice I do chuck out often is surround yourself with the kind of people that you would like to be like. If you go into that green little bogeyman of envy or jealousy or fear or kind of pushing out a bit of hatred towards them because they're smashing life and you think you deserve it, that's a beautiful opportunity. Pause, say, okay, I have that. I'm going to be honest, I have that. How do I make that positive petrol in my engine to flip it and say, this is not an opportunity to judge. This is an opportunity to engage and sort of think, how do I be inspired and not downtrodden by that and push forward? So I think that's really important. People sort of miss that. Another bit of advice I'd give is don't think you have to do it the way everyone else does. University is not the start and end of things. Intelligent, clever, expensive research or scientific approaches or going down a traditional corporatized commercial business plan model, you don't have to do it that way. Find, and this is a really powerful word for me, but it's a bit overused in the world right now, is find your authentic self. What is authenticity for you? And then never bloody apologize for it. All the things usually you don't like about yourself as an early teenager, that's the stuff that becomes the gold dust, what we're going to call in 15 years your personal brand. That's the gold dust, what we're going to call your USP. I remember I hated being that working class poor kid with no money, awkward jokes, being that chubby, pale, ginger kid from Scotland. Hello, I've just saved myself $45,000 in marketing expenditure for the year. I'm going to be that big ginger ball of loud, positive, happy, jolly leadership energy. That's why I'm sitting on your podcast. That's why I go around and doing what I do. That's really important to sort of push that kind of big ranga message out there and kind of own those things. Humor become my armor. I was that big bully, the bullied kid at school, and, humor became my shield, and you learn to put yourself down before others can. But I've learned to be self-deprecating as a defense mechanism. My mother said I should be more self-deprecating, and I said, I can't, Mum, I'm not very good at it. Terrible joke. But there we go. Framed how I think about things and proceed. Actually, a little dose of self-deprecation is really important. People think, don't be so modest, you should embrace yourself a bit more. But the confidence is there, don't worry. It's just, I understand that a bit of modesty and self-checking is really important too. So I think surround yourself with great people. Put yourself in their rooms. Don't get jealous of them. Get alongside them. Understand them. Find your authentic voice. Go and find your why and your yes. These are really key components for me that start to build up the small actions that become kind of bigger change.
And you talked about authenticity and finding the unconventional path. You had a bit of an unconventional turn of events when you had the opportunity to participate in Big Brother. That is a mile away from the everyday life with the camera on you 24/7 and that intensity. And you ended up the winner of that particular series. What did that experience teach you about the world and your authentic self?
Oh, where do I start? A lot of expensive therapy. Yeah, well, the most watched, served, and famous house in the country, if you like. I spent my life thinking I'm going to try and enter the House of Commons and end up in the Big Brother house. Very a teenager, wet behind the ears, not really sure what I'm doing. But it doesn't matter. Again, take the opportunities as they present themselves to you. If you try and have an over-scripted, rigid impression of what your narrative of life is going to be, you are going to fail on your buttocks. You will struggle. You will fall down because there's an old phrase that something goes like, life is what happens when you're busy planning your life journey. The reality is not what you expect. There's a wee parallel that I've got I've got bunch of friends, but one friend in particular who's phenomenal, is a real powerhouse of an entrepreneur and change maker and whatever. But he's the opposite of me in that he is a grade A introvert. He's spoken about his social awkwardness or anxiety, and that any interaction that comes up, he gets in his head. And lots of people relate to that. He overthinks, he worries about the dialogue, the conversation. And we really got into it once. And then he sort of said to me, when I'm going into a conversation with somebody, I script how it's going to go. Hello, how are you? I'm fine. People say, what have you been up to? There were things. There's these obvious questions that are gateways of hell for lots of people because it's sort of a free reign. If you're out playing bowling, the sides are down, the balls can fly anywhere. What am I going to knock down or not? It's just going to be an absolute strike or gutter shot. I don't know. And he just really worries about it. And it never crossed my mind. Just this absolute zone of comfort for me. It's a great opportunity to kind of push stuff out. As I got older, I actually started to get social anxiety because people knew me a little bit. I put myself out there, Big Brother or Youth Parliament, standing for election, all the stuff I've done. You're not actually sometimes being John. You're trying to live up or down to the version of John that you think people expect of you or know you to be. And it's really difficult. But anyway, he had this sort of scripted narrative and he said straight away, John, you're the person more than bloody anybody that the second I start speaking to you, you break the script. You never say what the human would say back. It goes AWOL. And that's life. So I say, well, stop trying to be a great script writer and just think, how do you become a fantastic actor in improv? How do you react and respond rather than script and predict? Because that will fail. So kind of be in the moment a wee bit more became really important. My script never had Big Brother house in it. But I was passionate to change the world. I got involved and helped set up the first ever youth forum in my area. I was passionate about defending the rights of others, speaking out on racism and homophobia and understanding really quickly for some reason that the world can really be read even through a class prism. It was really, really clear to me. But also gender. There was this sort of, and it's changing now. I'm not going to say it's getting better, but it's changing in that this sort of it's quite obvious the history of our planet is written by men and written by powerful men who want to retain their power. And you can observe that through lots of things, whether that is military, whether that is through empire, whether that is through religion, whether that is through the boardroom and modern technological and corporate domination. That story is written. And one byproduct of that is what happens around subjugation, violence, power holding. I found that areas of struggle or minorities, areas of minority or deprivation, they're often the most beautiful blueprints for male failure of toxic masculinity. We never hear about absentee mothers as a strategy problem to fix. There's these things I started to observe around who I want to change it. So how do we break all these different norms? And as you say, I ended up in this Big Brother house, reality TV. I was chairman of the youth parliament at the time. So I'm going to resist the urge to say that I was given the opportunity, because actually I think you work hard to put yourself in a position of maximum exposure for unexpected things to happen to you. I think you can absolutely generate unintended consequences. I think you can absolutely generate fortune. There's the phrase, fortune favours the bold. Absolutely. If I sat on my ginger butt, didn't go out, felt sorry for myself and gave up, that opportunity that I had nothing to do on the face of it with earning or generating towards me would never have happened. Therefore, I generated it and it happened. And there's others out there that say that, they'll give me this opportunity or that. But actually, there's a huge part of you put yourself in the positions for things to happen to you that you didn't make happen. I get the oxymoron there, and I mean it. So there's creating that. But the atypical route, if I measured myself on everything I don't have, I'd live my life as a failure. And in the UK, we did that. There was this phrase called NEETs, and I don't know if you had it in Australia, but NEETs was called Not in Education, Employment or Training. So that was about measuring economic activity or educational engagement of young people. And the government called them NEETs. So I had this big NEET label on. That N stands for not. How bloody dare you? We are raising a generation of nots. Government policy was literally to file me as all the things I wasn't doing or didn't have. Now, any entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, business person, activist or change maker, they know you don't create change, campaigns, victories, bottom line success by measuring everything you're not doing, by measuring all the stuff you don't have. You're not going to walk into the Apple store there in Melbourne or London or wherever, and an iPhone will say, hello, we don't have a 20-hour battery life. We don't have a 15 gig storage device. We don't have the ability to make you a pizza or whatever. You've got to flip that. So look for all this stuff. I was looking for the atypical ways to win. And actually for me, not becoming consumed in drug use, council house existence, self-doubt, depression, sort of giving up, ending up in prison and a life of violence or gangs. That was already me taking the atypical route because of where I come from, because of what my family ended up doing, because of the streets I was on. So just having the cheek to think I could live normally or have any contribution to shape a system, not to be shaped by the system, was already me cheating destiny and fate. And going out the Big Brother house, that just gave me a massive exposure to just go be me, to be authentic, to be awkward and silly and laugh and joke. And I think I won the show because I was me. I was earnest and honest. I didn't have a side to me. I think there was that moment around kind of people seeing the vulnerability or the lack of exposure or self-awareness that, ironically, if I did something like that now, I think I'd be too on it. I think I'd have the marketing chops or the thinking or the self-awareness to kind of approach it a bit differently. All the stuff that makes the cringe factor happen looking back on it is probably the stuff that was really quite endearing at the moment. So I was very good at being cringy, but it's probably the stuff that made this work looking back. But strategy comes in because after that, I'd wanted to push out and change society. I wanted to use the platform to make a difference. I'd spent at that point my whole life, and I was 18, 19, fighting for inequality, defending justice for what I believed in, getting involved in the local tenants groups and the arts organisations and setting up the youth forum and the anti-drugs groups and taking my antidepressant tablets but talking about it with others and being the jokey guy at school to look out for people and trying to do all this cool, great stuff. And society did not give a jot. They proffered me nothing back. I go and do a reality TV show for a month, which, by the way, is probably, I think it's 2008. So what's that? 16 years ago, something. 16, 17 years ago. To the very day I was in the Big Brother house, came out, probably this week, actually, and my life changed. I had all this attention, all this adoration. People wanted to know me. I was the cool guy. I was invited to all this fancy stuff. I wasn't struggling financially. It completely changed my life. Looking back, I had no awareness at the time of how critical something like that was, but it was a platform to do other stuff. So, yeah.
And did you maximize that platform? You went on to found Scran Academy. Was that straight after, or where did the road lead?
No, much, 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 much later. I actually lost myself for years after that because, I got, one of the big things that was an issue in my life was always being the sort of fat ginger kid, and my weight was a huge issue, and I hadn't come out yet and realised that I was pretending to be a version of myself that I wasn't. For all this confidence, to be honest about where I come from, what I went through, who I wasn't there. I understand that when you're hiding in the closet in lots of ways, you've got all these skeletons alongside you in there that often your family's caused and not you, that the media is going to tranche out. It's quite strange for someone that's going through all that to then turn up on a reality TV show where you're going to be, my family were doorstep, articles of hate put out, all this horrible stuff. So emotionally that took its toll on me. But remember, I was an expert at swallowing the shit, keeping it down and burping out the happiness, kind of taking in the carbon dioxide and trying to push out oxygen. That gets you eventually. It can only be a youthful audacity that gets you through so much. And I guess that was belated. Because my why was so strong, the sort of, the fervour of the opportunity in the moment is so great, I just had to go for it. That kind of caught me out further down the line, so I did get lost. But I then went on an absolute mission to defend the voice of the Scottish Youth Parliament, raised a profile at the time like never before, had one-on-ones with the Queen and the Prime Minister, and I was asked to do all these phenomenal things, which also led to a really important moment, which a huge bit of my propulsion as a leader is thank you to the great nation of Australia. And we are fellow Commonwealth comrades, for good or ill. And every couple of years, there's what's called CHOGM. CHOGM meaning the Commonwealth Heads of Government Meeting, which is the largest gathering of heads of state on the earth outside of the UN General Assembly. It's the 54 odd prime ministers and presidents around the Commonwealth. Now, this was 2011, and this year it was being held in Perth, Western Australia. And I got nabbed to sit on the planning committee for the CHOGM Youth Forum. More than half of the Commonwealth is under the age of 30. So this is a powerful demographic bloc. And so I get to go over and take part in this crazy event that Her Majesty the Queen headed up with all these phenomenal leaders. Julia Gillard was your Prime Minister, and I'm pretty sure Kevin Rudd had been your Prime Minister and was now your Foreign Secretary. I remember making a joke in my head, it was great to be in a country with a little rhino run it. And I thought, wow, ginger empowerment here is brilliant. And I remember saying that to Julia, and the joke went down like a lead balloon. But anyway, I meant well. And I'm pretty sure she was born in Wales, Britain, actually. It was at that, and get involved with, thousands of change makers around the world and leaders, and there's all these big people there, and David Cameron's there, and Stephen Harper from Australia's there, and the head of government from India or whatever. So anyway, I was selected by the Commonwealth Youth, democratically elected, to represent my region to give the reading at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Her Majesty is chairing this, all the Prime Ministers or Presidents around the table. I'm sitting next to Jacob Zuma from South Africa. You've got this big ginger pale guy in a kilt sitting in amongst them. Get up, make this speech. Jacob Zuma gives me a hug at the end of it. ABC News and Yahoo News, all these people were on me when interviewing me straight away because I sort of didn't read the script, spoke from the heart, captured the moment. Every opportunity, every interaction has an opportunity. And that propelled me. And I'm sitting on the Qantas flight home. And on the back of the wee Qantas rip-off bit, not even the big bit of the boarding pass, the little side bit, I started writing. And it's something about, it doesn't matter where you're from, it's where you want to be. And it's not the ability to be intelligent or rich or connected or beautiful or popular or powerful. It's the ability to believe you can do it. It's the ability to believe. I wrote there, dare to dream. I've just spoken to the Queen and heads of government from around the world in the most remote city on earth. I'm flying back to my wee, vulnerable and impoverished wee background. Is this gobby ginger kid who dropped out of university, struggled on by, has all this self-doubt. If I can do it, so can all of us do it. Why not? And it was dare to dream. Anyway, it turns out dare to dream is a heavily used and kite-marked phrase. So I landed on dare to lead. And for me, the daring bit was the bit that's universal. What university do you need to go to dare? What parents do you need to have to dare? How much money do you need in the bank to dare? How intelligent do you need to be to dare? You just need to have a heart and a head and be willing to find your why, then say yes and go and do it anyway. So for me, it was that kind of microcosm. I got back to Britain. That quickly became a business plan for this organisation called Dare to Lead. It was going to be a youth charity to help kids from all backgrounds roar louder and believe they can do what they want, find their version of Choggum to platform out. It became actually an all-age business or social enterprise. And that was, 2011, 13 years ago. My age of being a social entrepreneur and free thinker is now a teenager. I've never looked back. I've really had a boss since. We've worked with 100,000 people across 50 different countries. It's been a phenomenal journey to go out there. And my job's to help other people be brilliant at their job or find themselves or self-actualize and just be around amazing bits of thinking. And attitude is queen. Attitude is supreme. And what's beautiful, given that definition of leadership, is we can all choose to do it.
And if we can just finally wrap it all up in a nice little bow with the I and the I, what is the legacy beyond where you've come to so far? Is there a horizon to, or is there anything that you can leave us with that gives us an inkling of where you're taking this?
I love the idea that I make people smile a bit bigger. I love the idea that you can have a disarming but motivating presence, that your failures can become the kite marks and the blueprints for other people's successes, or for other people to find the learning in their failures, I think is a bloody beautiful thing. And knowing that other people, and I know this because of the fortunate people get in touch with me and say, you changed my life, or you helped me do this, or if it wasn't for you, that wouldn't have happened, or you just said the right thing with the right energy at the right wee moment of my life, that in that time felt like nothing, but was absolutely transformational. I think that's so beautiful. To just make other people be that bit fuller versions of themselves. And I love it. I run it, you referenced Scran Academy there. That came in the last 6, 7, 8 years. We went on to massively respond through COVID. We'll never have a COVID like it again in that same fashion. And sometimes you think, you see these YouTube clips, bridges are collapsing or gunmen pull out, guns. You watch these sort of impromptu heroes rise to the occasion and you think, would I fight or flight or freeze, or how would I respond to that moment? And without hesitation, I suppose I realised, and I'd just come through a big family bereavement, which is pretty tragic. Then we fell into COVID, went through a big breakup. Things were pretty shit. Even when the world's bad to you, you have the cheek to be good to the world back. And that was pretty beautiful, to help upscale an organisation, get young people and key workers at the coalface coalescing around us, produce 200,000 meals for the most vulnerable communities, mental health provision and support for vulnerable young people in poverty and facing trauma, and just responded in a big way. It was a real check for me to go, wow, that wasn't just a case of who you've become, that was a case of what you are. And you could have sat in your hands, accrued a bit of cash and just had an easy ride and kept safe, but my instinct is to look after other people, to respond, to problem solve, to rise in a crisis. I mean, that's really beautiful, and we helped other people around us. And that was, for me, was a bit of an unquestionable reminder that I'm not just trying to be better than the person next to me. I'm trying to make the people next to me better. And that's a really powerful message that I think more leaders of today could do with remembering and heeding, and just putting kindness and fun back into our models of leadership.
I don't think I could say anything more than that is the perfect ending to our conversation. It's been a pleasure to chat to you, John. It's been amazing to share your journey, but also to hear you reflect on the journey that you've been on and providing some tangible insights and takeaways for us to be able to say yes, to act on it, to believe and use that imagination, and to really do the simple things. Just focus less on yourself and see if there's people around you that you can lift to make that mission bigger. Well, thanks for joining us, and look forward to catching up soon.
Thank you.